Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. This week, the Biden administration announced new rules aimed at banning hardware and software from Chinese and Russian companies in connected vehicles, further intensifying U.S. efforts to address potential national security threats. After months of consultation with automakers and industry experts, the U.S. Commerce Department and the White House plan to implement these measures gradually. With the Monday announcement, U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo explained that the phased approach would target Chinese and Russian technology used in automated driving systems and vehicle communication. She highlighted the potential risks of foreign adversaries gaining access to sensitive data, such as personal information about drivers and the possibility of hostile actors taking control of U.S. vehicles en masse, creating accidents and disruptions. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan emphasized the urgency of the measures, citing past attempts by China to plant malware in U.S. manufacture and warning that connected vehicles, especially those developed by Chinese companies, increase the risk of disruption. This move is part of an ongoing effort to mitigate the perceived threats posed by China to U.S. data security and infrastructure. Similar actions were taken against Chinese telecom companies like Huawei and ZTE during the Trump administration. The following day, yesterday, the Canadian Finance Minister confirmed that Canada is considering banning Chinese-made software in vehicles too. When asked if Canada was contemplating such a move, she responded, quote, "The short answer is absolutely," end quote, adding that the government is seriously concerned about China's overproduction and potential security risks. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's administration has already imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles and 25% tariff on Chinese aluminium and steel. Hong Kong-based South China Morning Post, citing unnamed government officials, writes today that they suggest that banning Chinese-made software in vehicles would be a more permanent way to prevent Chinese EVs from entering the Canadian market. Like the US, Canada is also weighing the security and privacy risks associated with the data these connected vehicles could collect and potentially transmit. Regular viewers may recall that in the past, China has also had similar concerns about non-Chinese produced vehicles, banning Teslas in some parts of their major cities near military installations or sensitive government buildings. Next up, today, Wednesday, saw China's currency, the yuan, hit its strongest level in over 16 months after Beijing unveiled a slate of stimulus measures to shore up the slowing economy, which we covered in yesterday's video. The Chinese offshore yuan strengthened briefly to 6.9946 per dollar, the strongest since May 2023, and crossing the psychologically important $7 threshold. The currency has been rallying this quarter as expectations that the Fed will further loosen its policy after delivering a half percentage point rate cut kept the dollar near the lowest level since January. Ben Imons, founder of Fed Watch Advisors, wrote in a Wednesday note that a rapid strengthening of the Chinese yuan may add further deflationary pressure to China's exports by propping up the domestic stock market, which correlates with US and international stocks. In contrast to other major currencies like the US dollar and the Japanese yen, which have a floating exchange rate, China maintains a tight control over the yuan's value on the mainland. The yuan is permitted to trade within a limited range of 2%, above or below the midpoint rate for the day. Zelina Zheng, head of Asia Credit Strategy from credit research firm Credit Sites, explained in a note today, quote, "We see the possibility for offshore yuan to trade below $7 over the next 3 months, as the policymakers' pro-growth stance may trigger more short covering of CNH bearish positions and the Fed easing outsizes the People's Bank of China," end quote. Yuan gains could extend if greenback weakness drives Chinese exporters to repatriate some of their large dollar holdings into the local currency. Capital flows into the country have already improved in August, as local firms registered net sales of foreign exchange at banks for the first time in 14 months. Meanwhile, US-based Bloomberg reports that Chinese exchange-traded funds, favored by the sovereign fund, saw inflows pick up on Tuesday, suggesting state buying might have played a role in the biggest onshore equity rally since mid-2020. Combined inflows into 8 ETFs, tracked by Bloomberg, rose to 13 billion yuan, $1.9 billion, the most since July, when state-backed investors actively stepped into the market during a key political gathering. The CSI, China Securities Index 300 Index, rose more than 4% on Tuesday as China's central bank unleashed a set of stimulus to support the economy. The benchmark extended gains on Wednesday. This week, the CSI 300 is up over 8%, but remains down 7% year-on-year. So this week's great performance is from a very low base. The CSI 300 is currently sitting at a 5-year low, with over $5 trillion of wealth lost since its high in 2021. Bloomberg writes that inflows were particularly strong into the nation's biggest ETFs, pushing the value of the Huatai Pineberg CSI 300 ETF to a record 311 billion yuan. Quote, the market capitalization for the product, seen a key target of the national team in its bid to prop up equities, has swollen about 150% this year. The value of another heavyweight, E-Fund CSI 300 ETF, more than quadrupled to around 211 billion yuan. The gains are likely due to state inflows and growing real interest in the products as a handy tool to bottom fish. End quote. Today, Wednesday morning, the People's Liberation Army launched an intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, into the Pacific Ocean with a dummy warhead attached. China's military said the launch by the People's Liberation Army rocket force occurred at 8:44 a.m. on Wednesday morning local time. The missile fell into the, quote, expected area, end quote, it added, without saying where that was. The official statement added, quote, this missile launch is a routine arrangement of the rocket force's annual military training. It effectively tests the performance of weapons and equipment and the level of troop training. It achieved the expected purpose. China notified relevant countries in advance. End quote. This is China's first public test of an intercontinental ballistic missile into the Pacific Ocean in 44 years, with analysts warning the move could aggravate tensions in the already tense Asia-Pacific region. China's latest ICBM is known to be DF-41, which first came into service in 2017 and has an operational range of up to 12,000 to 15,000 kilometers, capable of reaching the US mainland. The PLA rocket force has come under scrutiny in recent years, with top officials investigated for corruption. US intelligence agencies reportedly believe the sweeping purge came after it emerged that widespread graft undermined Xi Jinping's efforts to modernize the armed forces and raised questions about China's ability to fight a war. The Pentagon warned last year that China has continued efforts to modernize, diversify, and expand its nuclear arsenal. It put the number of operational warheads at about 500, and more than 1,000 likely by 2030. Next up, more members of China's elite disappear. But just quickly, if you're getting some value from today's episode, don't forget to hit the like button. Sharing and subscribing is a tremendous help as well. 41% of regular viewers are not subscribed. It would be amazing if we could get that below 40%. We're right there on the cusp. Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are also in the description. For those who want to help keep the channel financially sustainable, I rely primarily on your subscriber support to keep the channel open and free for all 6 days a week. Thank you so much. Next up, and finally for today, Zhu Hengpeng, a prominent economist at one of China's top think tanks, deputy director of the Institute of Economics at the state-run Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, has disappeared. Yesterday, US-based The Wall Street Journal, citing several unnamed sources, reports that he was placed under investigation, detained and removed from his posts after he allegedly criticized leader Xi Jinping's management of the economy in a private group chat. Though this sort of development shouldn't be too surprising, after all, criticism of top leadership can often result in detention in China. However, it is worth taking a moment to appreciate how significant and disquieting this really is. When a system reaches a point where the leading experts in the country on the economy are arrested for criticizing economic policy making, it signals that the capacity of the system to self-correct is critically compromised. It's a serious red flag. The Wall Street Journal has published one of the best reports on Zhu's disappearance, so we will end today's video by examining it. We now quote selected excerpts of the piece, titled, Top Economist in China Vanishes After Private WeChat Comments Directly. The investigation of Zhu who for the past decade was deputy director of the Institute of Economics at the state-run Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, comes as the Communist Party ramps up efforts to suppress negative commentary about China's economic health. Beijing has struggled to revitalize a sluggish economy weighed down by real estate slump, a tepid sentiment among consumers and businesses, weakness that, some economists say, have been exacerbated by Xi's efforts to boost the state sector, rein in what he considers capitalistic excess, and protect China against perceived foreign threats. Under Xi, the party has directed a far-reaching clampdown on dissent that has punished critics of his leadership inside the party and beyond, with some high-profile targets, including influential business people and academics, getting detained, imprisoned, or forced into exile. Authorities have also tightened controls on data, curtailed access to information prized by investors and analysts for insights into China's economy. Zhu, who turns 55 this month, was detained in the spring after he allegedly made some impolite remarks in a private group chat on the WeChat mobile messaging app, according to people familiar with the matter. His remarks included comments about China's flagging economy and veiled criticism of Xi that referred to his mortality, one of the people said. It couldn't be determined which alleged offences were the focus of the investigation. Zhu has since been removed from his positions at the CASS Institute of Economics, where he was also deputy party secretary. Also, his name has disappeared from the online list of personnel at a think tank affiliated with Beijing's prestigious Tsinghua University. CASS, a ministerial-level think tank directly subordinate to the State Council, as China's cabinet is known, advises the party and government leadership on policy making. Zhu worked for more than 2 decades at the think tank, where he specialized in health economics, advising the government on policies related to hospital overhauls and access to medical care, and became an influential commentator on such issues. He was named deputy director of the CAS Institute of Economics in 2014. The probe coincided with an indoctrination campaign for CASS staff, aimed at enforcing compliance with Communist Party rules. Party members in leadership roles were required to sign formal pledges on instilling discipline and reminded to obey the 10 prohibitions, a list of banned activities that includes publishing improper material and collaborating with foreign entities without approval. CASS President Gao Xiang, a senior historian seen as a Xi loyalist, personally led the planning and execution of the campaign, according to a report published by the Academy. Officials should be fearful in their hearts, careful with their words, and restrained in their actions, Gao told an indoctrination session in June, the report said. Zhu's last known public appearance was in late April, when he spoke at an elder care industry conference. Zhu was scheduled to speak at a May 25th conference arranged by Tsinghua University's Center for Industrial Development and Environmental Governance, or CIDEG, where he was a member of its academic committee. However, the center's report after the conference didn't mention Zhu, either as a speaker or as an attendee. His name didn't appear on a list of participants, and his speaking slot was filled by another academic, according to people familiar with the conference. Zhu's name has disappeared from the CASS Institute of Economics online dictionary of its top officials, as well as the online membership list of Tsinghua's CIDEG's academic committee. In August, CASS administrators shuffled the leadership at the Institute of Economics, replacing its party secretary and director while appointing a new deputy director, according to an official notice. CASS didn't issue any notice on changes to Zhu's status. The new party secretary, Gong Yun, is a specialist in politics and ideology, having trained as a historian and written books about Mao Zedong. Weeks after the appointment, Gao led a meeting with senior CASS officials to sum up the achievements of the indoctrination campaign. Studying party discipline is a process of forging party spirit and unifying thought, said a CASS report on the meeting. The Academy, it said, must strive to build an ironclad army of theoreticians and academics that is loyal and reliable, it said. Here ends the direct quotes. One can have theoreticians that are reliable or ones that speak hard truths, but not both. And as China faces its worst economic conditions in decades, it is fast running out of the latter. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Wednesday, and I will see you all tomorrow.